Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
7:01.
so now we're gaveling in at 7:01.
Okay.
Thursday, June 28th, meeting of the Board of Directors, Sun Valley Association is now called to order. Roll call, I believe everybody is
No,
here.
Dale works there.
Except,
Oh, and
yeah.
Rich, yeah.
Rich and
Rich,
Adele.
I know, is on travel for various reasons. I have not heard from Odell. Sarah has a medical issue, and I wish her all the best. She's not able to be here. So, don't know about Odell. He may be late. All righty. So we do have a quorum nonetheless.
Yes.
And so, are there any changes to the agenda? Suggestions, corrections, et cetera, et cetera? Okay, seeing none, why don't we just say the agenda has been adopted by acclamation, and we'll go to announcements. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see, first things first. 4th of July comes up next Wednesday before our next board meeting, and it will be at the Marina, and it starts at 4 o'clock for a barbecue, free to all members for the first 500 people. Hamburgers, hot dogs, bag of chips, ice cream bar, separate tickets so you can get your ice cream bar separate from your barbecue, so you can always come back and get it, and a bottle of water. We will have a rock climbing wall there. We are selling wristbands for the rock climbing wall, $5 for an adult, $2 for children or seniors, as many times as you want to go up, which leads us to El Agave having a beer garden with a full bar right inside the tennis court. And so it, of course, naturally will be sitting and listening for someone to say, hold my beer, watch this.
Yeah.
So this rock climbing wall can have 5 people across. It's the biggest rock climbing wall available. There's a horseshoe contest operated by the Bellingham Horseshoe Club. Face painting for the children, and disc golf will be there, and so disc golf will be giving you the opportunity to try your hand at it. And at 8 o'clock, we'll transition over to a member provided. You bring your own fireworks. They will be screened to make sure that they're legal. And we will have fireworks from 8 o'clock until 11. Fire department will be there. A deputy sheriff will be there. Extra security will be there.
Okay, and the barbecue was members only?
Members only.
And the fireworks are?
Fireworks are Sudden Valley, and if you have outside people who want to come, $5 to come in if you are not a Sudden Valley member.
Okay.
All right, and Sudden Valley El Agave will be barbecuing additional food. So if you have friends that are coming that are not members, they will be able to buy hot dogs or hamburgers from El Agave. So they will also be barbecuing. So that's 4th of July. I have an announcement on Huckleberry Park. I sent the board earlier today a picture of what Huckleberry Park had looked like during its construction. It is the park that is being upgraded this year. I'd like to talk about Huckleberry Park real quickly. They are upcoming tasks in the next several days. They are going to finish washing all the play equipment and repainting the sign for the park. We're doing a new gravel path from the playground to the road. The area has been expanded about 500 feet to comply with state and federal law for the distance from the height of the swing to the distance to the end of the gravel. Okay. Now, we removed 70 yards of used wood chips, and we put in 120 tons of pea gravel. That's how much gravel it took to go ahead and make it a safety and compliant playground fall area for children.
I know this is probably not kosher, but I want to know, how much did that cost?
I don't have that number right now, but it's not an inexpensive activity. This
That
playground
much
cost
gravel.
about $9,500 to do the rebuild on.
Okay.
And then we're also grading and reseeding the soil around the border on the playground. The playground will be ready for the children by close of business tomorrow. There will be a fence at the back of the playground. That fence is up to prevent children from stepping off. It's a 3-foot fall. So we have to bring in more soil and then more sod so that it will be a safe walk-off area. Right now, we had to increase the border. This leads to the next issue for all of us.
So let me clarify that. Right, the fence, in other words, will be temporary until you get to construct the safer walk-off.
That is correct.
Okay.
The fence is temporary. So everyone has been listening to a discussion about the cost of materials on a national and international level, the issues between our country and other countries on dues and, not dues, on tariffs. Well, soft woods, which come from Canada, have gone up triple, and metal and aluminum have gone up equally. All of our raw materials are dramatically going up in price. Now, not the gravel, because we mine it here, but the park cost, good thing we had purchased most of the materials, but the park will be ready for the children tomorrow at the end of the day.
Slightly off topic, will that increase in costs cause a major adjustment to the budget process for next year?
It is going to impact our budget, because we do a tremendous amount of all of our construction costs. Contractors are calling us up. Now, we issued fixed price contracts last year, and the contractors accepted those fixed price contracts. The marina project was fixed price for labor, but not for materials. The materials price is dramatically going up. So those where we had fixed price contracts, including materials, that is to the contractor's detriment, to Sudden Valley's benefit. But to our construction projects, oil, metals, all prices are going up. I'd like to talk about dock masters. We have several new volunteer people who have started with the association. You'll see this in the views. We have now 2 voluntary dock masters, and they provide voluntary support to the association marina. They provide a presence at the marina, and they act as a liaison between the marina tenants and Sudden Valley staff. Rob Gibbs, who's sitting in the back, is one of them. Bob Woven is the other. These voluntary dock masters maintain daily interactions. They're down at the harbor all the time with member services, Andrea Herrig, and tenants at the marina. They have agreed on roles and responsibilities. They will represent Sudden Valley safety concerns. We have an unregulated growing offshore moorage presence on our shoreline, and they're looking at it. They are auditing the dry and wet moorage slips to ensure stickers are affixed to boats and trailers. They are monitoring the marina, identifying safety and environmental issues, and they have the contact numbers for all the marina tenants so that they can call them, especially on weekends, if there is an issue, without having to wait for the office to open on Monday morning. They can contact them directly.
Quick question on stickers. Does that include the invasive species stickers?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And they're also looking at trying to promote a boating club within the valley. So we have 2 voluntary dock masters. It's very value added to the association. So between that and the 4th of July in Huckleberry Park, those are our announcements.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Sir.
My announcement is an unfortunate one that we are not live streaming tonight. It is being recorded to be put on the YouTube channel, but it is not live. Just as we were setting up, there was a software, or actually a firmware update to the camera system, and it wiped out all of the saved passwords for YouTube. And so, since I obviously can't be trusted with Sudden Valley passwords, we're gonna have to put it up later.
Okay, any other announcements? Yes, sir.
Just one quick one, prime rib night, Saturday, starting at 4 o'clock.
Where?
Oh,
Elegave.
sorry, at Elegave.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
This isn't after the event, but I think it's important because we had, let's see, I think it was about 20 people from the Amateur Radio Club participate in a 24-hour field day down at the marina on Saturday and Sunday, and contacted people all over the world. So we didn't have as good a propagation as we've had in the past, but we had 3 different stations, both digital and voice, who were reaching out, and it's pretty good to know that we can reach the outside world should we become isolated here.
Great, thank you. And thanks to the committee for their work. Yes, sir.
This last weekend, the Parks, Trails, and Rec Committee had a trail walk where they met down at the AM/PM beach in the morning on Saturday morning, and a group of 12 members got together and walked the AM/PM beach trail, which was roughly ended up being about a half-mile trail, but there are many more spurs to the trail than what we took, and so it could be a much longer walk or hike if you'd like to do that. But it was an enjoyable time. It took us about 45 minutes to go through there and look at the features and some of the labeled tree systems, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. I questioned, is the committee going to be, I suppose, considering whatever it discovered during that walk?
Well, I'm not a member of the committee, but the people that were on the committee that were there were talking about everything from ways to expand the beachfront at the AM beach. That would be something that they would work with staff, and to dealing with the unauthorized fire pits that are up there in the beach area.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were talking about different ways to improve the trail systems and improve usability of our community assets.
Super, super, excellent. Anything else? Okey doke, let us go to property owner comments, board comments then, since there appear to be, unless you guys have something you want to say. Board comments? Okay, let's move straight into the consent agenda. Does anybody have any change or suggestion to those? If not, then why don't we consider them adopted by acclamation? And we'll go then to the GM's report.
I have a lot of comments that'll go with this that are not in the notes because I've been receiving a lot of updates today. The first comment, the condo associations were all offered road and micro sealing contract as part of our roads work. 2 of the Whispering Cedars Street Association in Gate 2 accepted, and they are repairing the potholes and then micro sealing their roads, and they're paying for their own cost, their own construction management, their own design portion. Valley View Condo Association purchased. They are buying, repairing their own parking lot, their own pothole repairs, paying their own service. One of the other condos has asked for a late bid, Ranch House. They'll get their bid in a few days, and they'll decide whether or not that they're going to participate. The others have declined up to now. Puget Sound Energy is starting to upgrade their power feed lines in Gate 2. We should expect some road delays. We're waiting for their schedule to arrive. I'd like to point out that we have a tremendous amount, a significant amount of construction activity that's in final planning or in progress. This is in addition to, so far this year, being 22 approved new home construction starts. We believe this could go to 26, which would make this the biggest year for construction starts in over 10 years. The 2018 culvert repairs has been awarded. The clubhouse ADA door repair is complete. We have awarded the 2018 road repair and the resurfacing project, which is pending award. The Barn 8 stairs, all permits have now been received, and our first bids from the contractors on site that are working, we've asked them for bids, and the first bid has come back, and it is within the amount of money plus including the design cost, so it's within budget. So we are anticipating the others will, if they're not within budget, well, we know who's going to get the first award. So it is within budget. The pool refurbishment, while it is awarded, we are having problems with the contract. They found additional damage found on the skim filter edge. This is where the water comes up over the water comes up from the pool over an edge, and it gets filtered out. It is cracking every time they've tried to repair it. They found that there was an inferior repair in past years, and it is completely breaking down. I sent a picture out. We posted it online last week showing a picture of the main pool after we had bush hammered the different plaster areas, and it looked like the whole pool bottom had mumps. Well, it's de-lambed. I mean, all this area was breaking apart. This is a tremendous amount of near failed, if not failed, plaster in the pool, and it has been detected, and it's far more than we expected. And now with the repair, the damage they found 7 days ago, they're starting to ask for an extension on the pool work. This is fearful to me. I'm meeting with the contractors and the project manager tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock to hammer this out. They're pushing back, asking for an August completion date, and we're pushing back saying, you had 7 months to look at the project. Would you explain to us why you failed to be able to find damage early on?
Thank you, sir.
So we are having a rather direct, focused conversation. We had several today, we had several yesterday. Tomorrow we're all going to be eye to eye to have another conversation. So we are working that out. But they are finding more and more damage as they get into the pools. This is an example, as we had shared in the past, that the pool was a significant asset to the association. It has had small repairs over the years. Those small repairs were not done very well. And so now when we're doing a complete repair job, those small repairs which were done not to a standard that we should expect for our money are failing, and they're now fixing them to the standards that we have laid out. We should expect that it's going to be completed, but it may take longer, and we're working that out. Does that work for you okay? You're checking on your email there. Okay. So Area Z storage building. So
Let me
we're
ask-
in a...
Mitch, let me ask a question regarding the pool. Are you expecting significant, or have you received any indication of any significant price increase due to the additional work that is
They
required?
have asked for some. On this particular one, on the skim filter line, they asked for a $7,000 cost adjustment. I have not yet accepted it, although my words to him this morning was, well, if you're holding us hostage, I guess I have to approve it, but then there is a clause in our contract for arbitration, and I said, you had more than enough time to investigate the pool, so you should expect that if we don't agree, we'll go to arbitration on this. We're going to approve to get our pools done, but we may push for arbitration. That's as far as I really want to go on the conversation on contract.
Yeah.
Area Z, storage building. I'm going to have to change up the conditional use permit. The county is starting to ask for a lot of information on a pending. We added 2 buildings in, one that's approved, the storage building, but a conditional use permit's a very expensive permit, so you put in everything that you think you might need down the road. All right, well, they're starting to ask us for stormwater calculations for a new maintenance building. I don't think I have time or the design money to go ahead and fully design that out. So I gave permission today to the county to drop the future building, because we're not going to do those calculations now.
Understood, what are we losing because we're going to be required to file a new permit if we decide to do that building? What's
need
the
the
cost
conditional
at
use-
least what's the cost of that permit?
That cost of the permit is $8,000.
What's the cost of the design work?
More than that.
Okay, all right.
We don't have a full design for a brand-new
Yeah,
building.
well, certainly we don't have time, but.
Yeah, and it's a
yeah.
question of time, and then it's a question of cost. The fire marshal came in and said that you are apparently going to be building out Area Z. The corporation appears to want to do more work inside there, and it's existing non-conforming. We have no issue with that, but you have no infrastructure. Therefore, we will require a fire hydrant that be added, which will be future fire lines also, and it needs to be within 400 feet, and there isn't a fire hydrant within 400 feet, so we will have to add a fire hydrant to that project. That is a $30,000 to $40,000 cost. That's a significant cost. I will back that up with another piece of news from the Department of Ecology. We have a preliminary statement from the Department of Ecology that they are going to accept our results from silica gel and declare the area not contaminated. They're going to accept those numbers, and we're holding $76,000 to do the work that we expected to have to do this year, adding amendments and soil tilling. We will not have to do that. It appears that they're accepting the results, so it's going to be a little bit of a wash, actually, to the plus side. So I'm waiting for the formal memo, but I read the informal results from the Department of Ecology and the response from to the Department of Ecology from our environmental analyst, and their response, it appears that we are done except for water monitoring. So more to come, but the fire marshal's requirements are the fire marshal's requirements, and they can't be denied. Water district. Well, those people at the water district, when you want to put in a fire line,
Those people.
5,000, those people,
Those people. Yes.
yeah, one of them people.
One of those people.
$5,000 deposit for a new fire hydrant, $750 fee.
Now, is this related to the marina hydrant or the
No.
hydrant at Z?
No, I already calculated it in the marina hydrant.
Okay.
This is for the new hydrant now being requested by the fire marshal at Area Z.
Okay.
They are asking for a utility protection agreement from the water district for putting in the fire hydrant. We'll have to sign a utility protection agreement. And last is the county has changed their mind on our work at the marina this coming year for the soft armoring. And on part of it, they're going to want a substantial development permit on the west perimeter work. And those cost several $1,000s. So even though we're doing our shoreline permit, they're now saying they're going to want a substantial development permit. And so that is their request. We'll have to respond. This is going to go back to finance because they have just about taken our contingency down to the 0 level. So I'm going to have to work this out with finance.
Is there any opportunity to appeal that decision?
I'll withhold my answer for now. I don't have the right answer.
Okay.
I would be speculating. I'd prefer not to do that.
Appreciated.
So let's see, marina standpipe, soft armoring. Well, I told you about the soft armoring. They're asking for a substantial development, but these marina standpipe, SEPA is okay. It's awarded. We're waiting for permits on that. And the clubhouse retaining wall, we were told today, 2 more weeks and you can have your permit. And the company has given us an updated number. We're waiting for the permit and we'll award the contract. Let's see, we've updated a new report in accounting, goal to help members understanding our financials. We've got an article coming out in this coming next month's dues on the cash reserve report. And we've been spending a lot of time on those reports to help the community understand how to read these reports. Currently, Sudden Valley has 27 payment plans compared to the 60 this time last year. I will point out that the board gave us permission a number of months ago to pursue foreclosure action on 3 particular homes. And on the 3 homes that they gave us permission, we did not have to do any of that. One of them provided us a check today for $14,600 to bring themselves current. A month ago, 2 weeks ago, one of them provided us with all of their funds up front, including 1 year of dues, and that person is now a member in good standing for the first time in maybe 9 years, and paid a year of dues up front. And the third one was a deceased member, and we're waiting for the lot to come in deed in lieu. So those worked out quite well.
Let me ask you to step back a bit. One thing you did not discuss was the HVAC issue for the clubhouse.
The air conditioning in the clubhouse is split into 2 units, the upstairs and downstairs. Outside of the building, for those of you who park outside and you see this little structure that's got a shelter over 2 condensers, there's a 30-ton and a 20-ton air condensing coil out there. The 30-ton has, it won't hold pressure. We've pressurized it up to 250 psi with nitrogen for the last couple of days, and it's holding. But when you put Freon back into it, Freon is very expensive because this is an older unit, R22. The amount of Freon, I'm surprised you don't see more burglaries like this. That Freon would cost $15,000 to completely fill the entire unit. So half the Freon is evaporated, so when it's under pressure, the valves and the seals are leaking. That's what we surmise. A coil inside that compressor operates on R22, which is very, very expensive gas. They don't make it anymore. And same with the air conditioning unit. Excuse me. Same with the air handler that's in the basement downstairs. It operates on a type of Freon that's not manufactured anymore. I've had 3 different contractors, large contractors in this area, walk through the entire system in the last couple of days, and I'm waiting for them to give me bids to repair it. Without air conditioning, El Agave is not in business in warmer weather. We have to put air conditioning into that facility on the 2nd floor. The air conditioning system is comprised basically of 4 components. The heat comes from electric heat dampers that are in the duct, but the air conditioning comes from the compressors making something cold outside and getting rid of the heat and pumping that chilled gas into the building, where it goes through an air handler that blows air past cold coils. And so the coil downstairs is not good, and the controls are not good. The other component is called an economizer, and that economizer has not been in service since 97. Someone took it out of service and decided not to put it back in. An economizer takes outside cold morning air or evening air and turns off the outside flow and pumps fresh air into the building. So instead of making cold air, it pumps in cold air because it's cheaper to make hot air than it is to make cold air. So it blows in outside air, pumps it through the building. The electric heaters come on through a thermostat and tell it to heat up, and it makes warm air inside rooms. The economizer is inexpensive. It's like, well, relatively, in the total cost of the project, it's in the $12,000 range. The amount of cooling that this association has been spending to make cold air in that building, this is a 1-year payback. And when I realized the economizer hasn't been working, that's ridiculous, because it's cheap to put in cool air instead of trying to make cold air. So I've asked them to give me a price for fixing the 30-ton unit, the economizer, and the air handler. Does that answer your question?
It does. You don't have numbers yet, and I presume that they're not going to be cheap, but when you get them, they're going to go, I presume, to finance.
That is correct.
Okay.
Or to the exec committee, because As the temperature goes up, El Agave is telling us if our customers leave because we don't have air conditioning, we hold you accountable. It's on you to give us air conditioning.
We are the landlord.
We are accountable for giving them the facility capable for the lease.
That's right.
Which, speaking of that, I gave El Agave their lease this morning and asked them to sign. It's been 5 years. On the HR side, with the passing of the SCM, the Administrative Office, we've distributed over 700 access cards. Phone calls are up by 49% over the prior month. The new rec managers onboarded along with 2 part-time rec staff and 2 full-time park staff. They're fully staffed as per the SGM, and they're working with administration and the Parks, Trails, and Rec Committee. We have hired lifeguards. Now, we'll have a little problem as to what day they're going to start, but we have hired our own lifeguards. The YMCA doubled the cost and then actually said they would prefer not to be in the business of supporting lifeguards to us, so we hired our own. And they're going through training at Arnhem, and it's going to be a very interesting question of how, and I guess everyone can speculate, how many people will actually use the pool? The ratio of lifeguards to occupants is 1 to 25. For every 25 people, you have to have 1 lifeguard, minimum of 2 lifeguards, but you have to have a senior lifeguard. So at the max, we can have 125 people or 5 lifeguards at a time. Well, the YMCA has told us in the past that they maxed out only 2 times. That's what they said, 2 times last year. Well, with the pool being free to the membership, the question is, how many times will we be maxing out this year? And so we're actually staffing at a higher end, thinking that we'll have more use than we did in past years. And so, but how many? You don't know. We don't have something to gauge on. I don't have a metric to look at. In past years, it was this many lifeguards needed for this many users because it wasn't free. We don't know. And so we are staffing accordingly with a lot of contingency to be able to meet the need without telling people, you can't come into the pool, we don't have enough lifeguards now.
Question, if the work on the pool is extended by a month, what are we going to do with those lifeguards that we've hired? In the meantime, I'm certain that they would not be happy not being paid.
Liquidated damages is one of the words that I used in a conversation with the contractor this morning, and that is certainly a viable reason. Now, the other is that we can, once we open, we can go to extended hours, we can extend the pool further into the year. We'll have to decide what we're going to do, but I don't know what I don't know right now, and that is, when will you open? And so we are having multiple conversations per day.
So I gather from that, it was a complex answer, but I gather from that that one possible alternative is that the lifeguards will be paid essentially on the contractor's dime, so that we have them available when the pool does in fact open.
Presumptive.
That's one option, okay? Yeah.
I have a question.
Michael.
Go ahead, Eric.
Eric.
We speculated early on after the SGM about the potential overrunning use of the gym now that it's free to members. And since we've issued 700 cards, you said?
We've issued over We've issued over 700 cards.
Right.
By the way, the number this morning effectively was, every family gets 1, but then you have to purchase a second. 88 cards have been purchased.
Okay. Now, has the gym been overrun?
It has not been overrun. Now, I was in the gym this morning at 8 o'clock, I'm happy to say.
Sort of happy to say.
My heart is happy to say that I was in the gym at 8 this morning, and there were a lot of people in the gym at 8 this morning. And gym usage is up. To David, who will always ask us for metrics, yes, he will. We're not going to report metrics for at least a couple months. Let us have a couple of months, because 1 month does not give you a trend, right? So we're going to need a couple months to be able to really track the trend. And since it takes a badge to get into the gym, we have a good way to be able to understand who went in, who went out, how long you were there. We need a couple months of reporting time to be able to pretend a trend. But the usage is definitely up.
It's up but not overrun.
It is not overrun. No. David?
A few years ago, whenever we were charging, I believe, $450 for the season, I believe, for families to use the swimming pool, the numbers were relatively low. And we passed a change to that it cut it in half to two and a quarter. And my understanding is the amount of people that went there just ballooned. And we chose not to do the metrics, and I wish we had them because that would have been an interesting statement. But my understanding is, and that was with paying, because from what I gather at that time, there were only 4 lifeguards, so you had a limit of 100 people. And there were a number of times when I went there, and they were maxed out. So my guess is, just using that limited, I know it's a limited amount of information there, my guess is that's going to be pretty well maxed out on a regular basis.
Could well be.
Okay.
Just a second, him first, and then you.
Mitch, what about the adult?
Microphone, please.
Hey, Mitch,
Hi, Mike.
what about the adult pool?
You know, it's an interesting question. When he told me today about the little problem with the skim coat on the drain line, I said, well, obviously that didn't affect the adult pool, did it?
Oh,
So, again, tomorrow morning, we'll have a little eye to eye and have a conversation. I was told, actually, no, the adult pool is looking just fine. And I said, that's great. I'm looking at your original schedule, and I'm looking at the contract. Let's have a conversation. And really, I'd like to stop talking about the pool because it's going to turn into a contract discussion.
okay.
Linda?
I have a question. I know we know the capacity of the pool, how many people we can have. All of our rooms here have an occupancy capacity. Do you know what the occupancy capacity is for the gym when we talk about maybe too many people using it? I'm assuming there's a number there.
49, I think it is. 49, I believe it is. I think that's the number that's posted over the exit door for fire.
Linda, I'm going to defer to Director D'Angelo. He said the number was 49. I do not know that number off the top. So I'm going to have to get you that answer.
That's cool. Since I don't go in the gym, that's why I didn't know, but I know all of our different rooms have different capacities. So
They do.
Thank you, Mike.
Back to accounting. I did receive a resignation this week, and I was really sad to receive it. Our accounts payable person has given notice. She got a job that we will not be able to match. So we are in the process of replacing our accounts payable person, and we have gone through quite a few interviews today, and we have a working plan for what we're going to do. I will let the board know what we're going to do as the situation develops. And we've already lost, let's see, our third summer temp hire stopped coming to work, so we'll be replacing our third summer temp hire. On the recreation department, the pool policy was written, it's in draft, it's in review by the Hub Risk Management Safety Manager, and it is sent off to legal counsel today for final review. It's been reviewed by the Department of Health, local county staff. They've given input. It looks like it's going to be in good shape. Expanded gym hours now, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9, weekends 7 to 9.
7 to 7.
7 to 7, yes, I stuttered. It is staffed 7 days a week, but not full day coverage. We have drafted a Q&A for the rec program. A lot of information. I sent this off to all of the directors the other night. I believe I sent it to you, and I sent it to a lot of other people. And I've asked for a few last-minute changes, and I looked at a template of the rec department web page today, and we'll probably agree with it, and it will go live within another day or two, and this will be posted. So, and we'll post it at our administration office and everywhere else. And it's the common questions people are asking about: how do I get an access badge? How many people? Who gets to take my children? Why do I have to do this? What's the purpose? We also have initiated the creation of a gym operations manual, and it will go through the same process. It will go through our insurance risk management safety manager, and then through council. We are working with our class instructors to integrate the rec department into their programming. All the equipment is at operating performance. We've awarded our annual gym equipment maintenance contract. Huckleberry Park, I believe I sent all the directors a picture of Huckleberry Park and talked about it a few minutes ago. Huckleberry Park will be our one park this year that we will be refurbishing. It's amazing how much work it takes to bring a park up to par that has not been there for many years. Last is that we now have our rec manager who's integrated with the Parks, Trails, and Rec Committee, and she is working with the committee to get 3 prioritized list of schedule of the 219 park refurbishments. This year we did Huckleberry. What will be the park next year? What will be the winter 2018 trails work that we're going to have the staff work on over the winter season? And what are the services, the rec department's path forward coming up? There's a lot more to do. I heard a phrase the other day, battle of the gates, when it comes to softball, and I kind of liked that, and I think that that's really good. Odell, what gate are you in? Yeah, could you move to gate 2?
Why? You don't want to play?
Well,
Gate 1.
Yeah, he's in gate 1. Okay. Well, gate 2 rocks at any rate. So I have heard talk of a battle of the gates for a quick tournament this fall. Golf department revenue is 17% more than last year. Revenue is quite good. Annual green revenue remains 13% higher. They have sold 52 memberships and $12,100 worth of upgrades. Our membership engagement activity is very successful. We have 20 new members taking part in the golf clinic. Things are moving very, very well. For those of you who are aware, that I believe most of the board, Brian Krulak is now at 60% time, and we have brought in a new first golf professional, first golf pro. Brian's job at this point is to increase the marketing and share and income and revenue of the golf enterprise at Sudden Valley. And to do that, he went to 60% time and brought in a more junior but PGA member golf pro. And Scott is up and running the golf department on a day-to-day basis. Brian's job is marketing. Golf is not going anywhere. That was established last year, and as part of this plan, it's now go after market share and increase our pot as it comes to golf in Whatcom County. On maintenance, fire-wise, we are up and running. We finished May 25th, large surge of activity in the last part of it, clean green. We're in every other week schedules right now. Rec department maintenance completed the setup and installation of the offices. They moved in all the lockers. They've stripped a lot of lockers out of golf and installed them downstairs. Vegetation control, I was over there the other day right in front of Mike D'Angelo's home. They are doing their vegetation control right now. And we are up and running on the maintenance connection software. That is live last week.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a long time coming, but
It is a
certainly
long
good.
time coming, and it is up and running. And so there, in fact, I get to my office after I do a tour through, I drive the association a minimum of 1 day a week and write up a list, and I get to my office and I pull up the maintenance software system on my computer, and I begin adding in the things that I notice that need to be done.
That's great for you. What about for the board? Is there a way for board members to access that data?
No,
So-
there's not, but you're members of the association, and so you get to call in to member services and say, this needs to be done, and member services, like everybody else, gets to then log in. Everyone on the admin staff has the same access, and it's very fast. They go in, enter the service request, and it goes into a queue, and we get to track to see how it's performing.
Okay, so that tracking, again, kudos to you for keeping us on target with the issue of metrics down through the years. Will metrics be made available to
There's a
the board?
dashboard on this machine, as we had shown you in the past, so it's up and running, and now we get to watch how it performs and dial it in. Now, unfortunately, our accounts payable person was the administrator on the software.
So, yes, it's not available yet, but it will be made
It will,
available.
it will be incorporated in the monthly report.
Okay, all right, good, good.
Linda?
Just a quick question. So we're talking about preventative maintenance, and I know you're saying people can submit requests and that sort of thing. Is there, I'm assuming that means that there is a printed out schedule of standard preventative operations that maintenance should do at different times of the year? Because didn't we hire someone special to go over and make sure all of the components for the buildings, like gutters or downspouts or whatever needs to be done, is
I'm
put
not sure
into
what
the
you're really
schedule?
asking me. What are you really
I
asking?
guess what I'm asking is, it's nice that there's individual service things we can ask about, but is there a basic overall preventative maintenance schedule that tells the different things that need to be done in January, February, March, April, to all the different components in the association?
It was already loaded up.
Could I
Yeah.
add something?
Go.
An observation that I had a week ago when they just started rolling out the software on their tablets. I saw a maintenance worker going through the buildings, looking at every fire extinguisher and every fire alarm, testing everything and checking it off of the checklist, and there was a map on his tablet that showed him where to find every component. And I'm not sure what the frequency of that check is in the system, but it was actually a pretty impressive thing to watch happening in real life.
There's an annual maintenance plan. It is loaded up. The tasks are identified. There are task plans. And it says, gee, if you're going to go do gutters, well, it actually defines in the task what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to do it, what the expected time frame is. Their tablet they log in and show when they're leaving from the shop to go do it, and when they finish that job and go to the next. And if there's a problem, they have to identify what the problem is, which gets uploaded to the program to show there's a problem for it to be repaired.
I know you probably don't want to put this out to everybody, but just between you, and maybe the rest of the board isn't interested, I'd love to see an overhead like we sometimes do, just to see what something like that looks like. We waited a long time to have something like that, that it might be nice to be able to show all the different components that are done and stuff, but that's up to the board if they'd like to spend time doing it. But I think it'd be
you're in-
well worth it for the, for people, the membership to be able to come and see.
It's a pretty interesting system. Be happy to walk you through it. I could put it up and then you'd look at it and go, well, there's a lot of data up there. And so it's not as intuitive as you would
As
hope.
I think, okay.
But if you'd like to see it, I'd be happy to walk you through it.
Thank you.
David, same thing.
Yes, whenever, a few years ago, I passed out to the board a kind of overview of a reporting system, which I put together. I mean, I did a maintenance program, central maintenance down at a major utility down in Houston. And on the report, and anybody could access this online, supervisors, general supervisors, managers, superintendents, what it did was it included the number of people that were there, number of hours that they were scheduled, that they were available, number of hours, direct hours of work that they were assigned, how many of those direct hours were completed, what the productivity was, all of that, plus what the FTE numbers were, and the relationship to how many they should have at a particular percentage of productivity. And I passed this out a few years ago, we had talked about it. But anybody, again, the supervisors, the general supervisors, the managers, all of those.
I apologize for interrupting, David, but that's really not where we are right now in this conversation.
Well, it was just asked about, I thought it was, because it was asked about reporting.
Well, we're actually in the
with regards to
general
that.
manager's report.
Let's put it this way.
Too much detail.
The general, number one is too much detail, but number two, the GM just addressed the issue of getting metrics out of the program, and right now it is doable, and we will be getting it, but it is not yet completed, and we have a staff replacement to help that. Now, the kind of metrics that it can put out now,
Right.
when that comes out, we'll see it, and we'll do whatever revisions we need at the time.
I was
But-
merely suggesting
but
it's a report that we as board
Why-
members ought to
two
be able
things.
to see, right?
Recirculate that report,
Okay.
since you sent it to us, but many years have passed. Recirculate that, make sure that Mitch gets a copy, and we'll see at an appropriate time how best to integrate what the system is set up to do now with maybe what we might want more from it, and then we can work that through as time goes on. And then let's move on.
It's excellent. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, I know
criticizing
that.
aspect.
I know
No,
that.
I think it's excellent what's been done
we're
with
good.
regards to that.
We're good, David. I think that most everyone knows Sudden Valley assisted in the apprehension of a person on a car prowl in the last month. We work with the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. We had been having problems with a car prowl. The person was armed. They were on drugs. They were carrying drugs. The person was arrested for a controlled substance, vehicle prowl, and theft in the 3rd degree. The person was not a Sudden Valley member. They were living in a home here in Sudden Valley, and they were trespassed from Sudden Valley. Neighborhood Outwatch, we had a meeting. 35 members of the association attended the meeting. We've turned over the list by gate to the Sheriff's Department, and we're now working with the Sheriff's Department to get them to put together a neighborhood watch outreach program with our community. We had a vandalism problem with our totem trail along Lake Louise path. We offered it a reward, and no one has stepped forward to claim the reward. The chances are that we are going to now post that reward along the trail. So if there's a person who walks that trail, who knows anything about it, that reward will stay live, and we'll attempt to find the person that way. At this moment, that is about all for my manager's report.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
May I ask just one question, Mitch?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've probably already looked into it, and it has to do with the HVAC components. If we replace these components, what's the expected life of the unit as opposed to just buying a new system?
And that's a
Do you
really good
know?
question, actually, Linda. Let's take the air handler, for example. Air handler is just a box with a big squirrel cage in it on a big shaft. The shaft is like 10 feet long. It's a hollow ground steel shaft. The last shaft that was in there, unfortunately, is still in the basement, which was much to my dissatisfaction was there. That shaft was replaced in '99. So that shaft has been in service for 18 years. And the squirrel cage is probably ready to be replaced, but the rest of the box and the controls, you don't have to replace them. So you want to replace the squirrel cage, maybe the controls, definitely the bearings on these units. The coil needs to be replaced because it's no longer compatible with, it is not compatible with new gas substitutes that are newer than the Freon that has been rejected, R12, R22. The compressor itself, you could pull the entire compressor out and put a whole new compressor in, but the compressor really is just a motor on a coil that pumps down gas and expands it into the coil to cool it down. So replacing the coils on these systems, they're good for 20 years. They get maintained. And the economizer is just a deep pit in the ground with variable vanes that open and close based on thermocouples that tell it what time the temperature is outside or what the temperature is outside. And some motors, and so it's motors and bearings and filters. So the systems themselves are pretty simplistic. It's just no one maintained them.
I guess just one last question, and then I'm all done with this. When you talk about the economizer, when the experts looked at it, is the reason they stopped using it in '97 because it wasn't working, or just out of their choice of not using it?
It wasn't the requesters. I talked to the company that was told to take it out of service. They provided an estimate to Sudden Valley to replace it, and they were told, nah.
So it wasn't, it was out of commission when it was taken away. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Hey, anything else? Okay, thank you, sir.
We have one.
Oh,
Just had
sorry.
one comment. I asked Mitch about this similar question to Linda's, and that was, if we were to do any other refurbishment work, because
Microphone, please.
I asked if we were to do any other refurbishment in that building, because we all know it's way overdue for interior refurbishment, especially in that lower, well, everywhere. And this is not going to be impacted. It will not have to be ripped out and thrown away. In other words, it's not going to be money spent that will eventually have to be just thrown away. It will continue to service the building even if we have to refurbish it.
This is a building system air conditioning component. Now, 2 of the 3 companies that have come in have said, we'll save you money and we will put in variable air volume air conditioning units in your rooms, and you'll have great immediate air conditioning control in each of the rooms right now if you let us do it. Those are like those big boxes you mount on the wall. Mm-hmm. Okay, those recirculate air. That's a Mexican restaurant, okay? This is not the place you recirculate air. You bring in outside fresh air, and you have air changes per hour. And I said, thank you very much. We'll stay with what we have because that air comes through ducting. And so even if we change the entire building, okay, we might change the ducting, but those components will stay and they will be viable.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Now let's move to the treasurer's report.
Minutes were submitted and they're posted online. And then Mitch has 4 capital requests, and I will say that these all were approved unanimously to be forwarded to the board at our Finance Committee meeting last Wednesday. And so let's begin with the first one, which is the roads funding, and this is on our roads. This was on our roads budget for this year. So Mitch.
Page 18, everyone. Mm-hmm. Capital Roads Funding Request, 2018 roads and ditch repair. We're looking for resurface of selected roads, sections in gates 1, 2, 9, and 13. The capital roads construction work involves 3 different components: road surfacing, roads repair, and ditch repair. Last January, the board approved $22,000 or $220,000 in capital roads funding for the roads resurfacing project. Bids have been opened. They were opened on the 15th, and the bids are in range. We are awarding. The scope of work for the project involves micro-sealing approximately 2.8 miles of roads and road striping, and identifying road repairs prior to replacement of the surface. And then it also had bid alternates for the condo parking lots, which they would have to pay for independently. The scope of work for the roads repair project, this request performs the work required to prepare the roads to receive the new surface. And it also does the pothole repair, the crack sealing, and repair of several ditches. The ditch work, as I will point out, separate from this report, is part of the annual ditch work and culvert and vegetation control work done by our staff. Our staff is not trained and they do not have the tools and techniques for deepening and widening efficiently, deepening and widening ditches. So I decided to take the money out of that pot and put it into here and have an outside contractor do that work that's qualified to be able to do it much more efficiently. I'm requesting $82,757 total allocation from the roads account to fund the 2018 roads repair project. And also, we're requesting decrementing or removing from the capital ditches, culverts, and swales funding an amount of $11,393 to fund the contracted efforts for the ditch repair. This includes construction management taxes and 20% contingency.
And I move that we approve this funding request.
And I'll second that, please.
Moved and seconded. Is there a need for discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I've just got one question. I know we've got 150,000 in the ditches and swales for the year, and if you take, and it looks like from the financials that were passed out at the Finance Committee, there's still $105,616 that hasn't been expended. If you take the 11,000 out of that, will the remaining 94,000 cover the work that needs to be done on the standard ditches and swales?
It's been factored in.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just want to mention that this 11,000 is part of this year's work. In other words, the 11,393 is part of the ditches and swales work. It's just being done by an outside contractor.
Thank you.
Call the question?
Question has been called. Any objection? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate. That's unanimous. This is approved.
I will point out the following pages. This was the actual bid that was received. Page 22, roads repair funding request, Southern Court. We're looking to mitigate in 2018. Providing capital funds to mitigate damage to Southern Court from landslide and block drainage in Southern Court, or on Southern Court. Southern Court is a 2-lane road without any significant shoulder. The roadway provides local access for 6 residences during, well, it says winter conditions, but it's year-round. And it's the only access to these lots to the outside. The section of roadway in question is about 750 feet long, extending west from Lake Whatcom Boulevard. The slopes on the up gradient on the north side of the roadway are steep. They're in a lot of places 1 foot elevation, 1 foot vertical. It's very steep. A tree fall resulted in a small landslide rock fall adjacent to the roadway during last winter of 16-17, and that small slide resulted in temporary loss of the road and a lot of debris filling the small rainwater ditch running parallel to the road. That rainwater ditch also sits on top of the electrical supply line that goes up to Southern Court. The most recent geoengineering study outlines several near and longer-term mitigations, and I have attached that report for the board. It calls necessary to protect the road. Now, in the near term, we believe hazard tree elimination and removing the remaining debris in the rainwater ditch are sufficient to protect the road's viability for the access for the Southern Court residents. So this project will be managed by us. We're not hiring an outside manager. We're going to go after 3 bids for tree removal. At this time, we're not going to do any of the rock scaling. So we're requesting $32,320 allocation from roads account to fund the Southern Court 2018 landslide mitigation work. And this includes taxes and contingency.
I move that we approve this request for funding.
I second that, please.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a couple of comments about this because this is a little bit tricky. There is a significant amount of work that's recommended to be done on Southern Court. And one of the concerns the Finance Committee had was, why aren't we doing it all to fix it right now? And we really had to depend on Wilson Engineering, who's our engineer on this and who helped us secure the geologist, who is, by the way, the only one. in Western Washington who will even look at our project, but they have come up with a, as Mitch said, near and long-term solution. We went to Wilson Engineering because our concern was how much do we have to do right away versus how much can be held off until we can really evaluate what's the next steps. And because it is very involved and it's going to take a lot of time to get it done. Wilson recommended this step as the first step for this year, but there will be future steps to be taken care of in future years. So, but we feel comfortable with their recommendation to move forward on just this portion right now.
It was Wilson and geoengineering.
Yes.
The
So-
geoengineer also, this was their report, Wilson concurred.
That answers my question, but raises a second one. Do we have a written plan for moving
Yes.
forward?
Yes, and it's in our roads
attached.
plan.
It's in this? Okay, very
Yes.
good.
And it's in our roads plan.
Yes, it's in our 10-year roads plan to finish the job over the next 3 to 4 years.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. President, Linda?
Back in 17, we allocated money from roads for an evaluation, the hazard evaluation. All that money hasn't been spent. If this is this then the final report of the different things we need to do? And if so, can you close that, or are there going to be further evaluations that are going to be done that are going to use up the full amount of that request?
Good observation. The other project will be closed. I stopped the other job. I wasn't satisfied with the work product, and I asked them to rebid it, which is why the treasurer said that this was the only company in western and northern Washington that we could get to bid. So I hired an engineering firm to oversee them. I wanted a check and balance. So the other project, I stopped the work on, I re-scoped and gave them a different direction with much more narrow definition. We'll stop and cancel the other job now.
So that'll be closed then. All right, thanks. That's all I wondered. Thanks.
Anything else?
Call the question?
Questions called, any objection? Then all in favor, please indicate. Excellent. Approved unanimously.
Page 48, please.
This one is not actually on our roads plan, but it is covered by a, how do I put it, our fallback or our,
We have money
have a
set aside every
reserve
year for
amount.
emerging projects.
yeah.
We're asking for funds for what I will call a 124 Grandview Lane roadwork project. The map that you see on page 49 on lot 15 is an owner who has been maintaining this section of road for the last several years. So the section that it's connecting 124 Grandview Lane's home to the main roadway requires significant repair. And the roadway and driveway are now beyond repair by overcoat or microseal. And they require leveling in a 2-inch overlay, which is more than we're doing on most of our roads. The section of roadway is not on our repair plan. It's been maintained by this owner for several years, and they took it upon themselves, including all the culvert cleaning. So the owner independently sought multiple bids from 3 contractors to repair the entire section, both their driveway and the road. And they then contacted the association seeking to share cost for the repair. And we looked at it and said, well, look, the road and the driveway do require the same effort. The percentage split proposed is 1/3, 2/3. 2/3 of this is the association, 1/3 of this is the owner. We would not have gone forward with this, but when an owner comes forward and says, I'll share the cost of the work and I'd like to continue to maintain it, we find that to be a very viable thing that we want to support. So we have proposed it. So we asked the finance, they approved and recommended to the board. The directors authorized $7,387 in the roads repair project for our portion of the 124 Grandview Lane road work. We have a commitment from the owner for the balance of the funds.
I move that we approve this request.
second, please.
Moved and seconded. Questions? I do have one. Who actually owns that? Is this one of the keyways?
This is not a keyway, it's a roadway. It's not on the map as a keyway. Not a parking bay, not a keyway, it's a road segment.
It's a very short dead-end road,
Yes, sir, it is.
and therefore Sudden Valley does own it.
We own it, we verified we own it.
Okay, and yet somehow it escaped the road survey,
No one would have bothered to look at a segment of road like this.
because it probably looked like a keyway.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that explains why it's not on, and it explains that we in fact do have responsibility for at least the roadway, and that's all that's being asked here. The
That's all.
driveway is the
Driveway is on the
one-third
owner.
cost. That's not us.
That's the owner's responsibility. Michael?
No, Eric's up, sir.
Oh, Eric, Director Trower?
So we're looking at the shaded blue segment in the middle of the plat map
Yes, sir.
here. So our share would be the larger of the two blue segments.
Yeah, when you look at that, this is the width on the plat map, but it's not the actual width of the roads. So they're deceiving. So everyone that looks at this says, well, look, it's a 30-foot wide road, isn't it? Well, actually, no, it's a 10-foot wide road.
10-foot road with
Yeah,
big
but
rights-of-way.
It's got a plat map, and
Yeah.
there's a road segment in it. But our section of the road is the upper of the two.
The lower, it says park easement. Does that have anything to do with that park that's?
That is the
Adjacent.
person's area that they use, and it also goes up the driveway to their stall. So he has a section that goes up onto 15. So he's offering to pay for the section that goes on to 15 all the way over to the end of that park section that he parks on. That is an 8-foot wide road. So even though it says park and it's ours, he's the only user.
And he's the one paying for that
And he's
upgrade.
paying
That's
for that
fantastic.
section.
That's great.
Okay, so I guess the confusion that I have on your question, this green area says park, and this blue says
No,
park easement.
Forget the green.
I understand, and so I would have assumed that park easement meant this is an easement to get access to the green park.
So that park is a water district area that they get up to from the back end of Valley
In other
View.
words, it's not really a park.
It's not a
However,
park
it might
area.
be marked here, it's not really a park.
All Sudden Valley property is actually parkland.
Gotcha.
So he's the only person that uses this park easement section, and it terminates and goes up his driveway. So his driveway and the park easement section, that's what he's paying to have paved, leveled and paved.
Gotcha. That makes it much more clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there were, my question is somewhat similar.
Microphone, please.
If there were a fire in the area that is designated as park, the access would be from where for the fire trucks to?
So if the area was in that parkland, they'd either come up this way or they would come off more likely Valley View Way. Valley View Way has a easement road that we maintain and the Water District maintains and that goes up this entire section. So they can come this way or they can come from Valley View, either way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Since that was raised, and we do have this long white space that is called an access easement. Is that the road you're talking about? I don't think so.
No, it's not, but it is another access easement that gets for the water department to get into that area. They have pump stations in that area.
Okay, so I presume it's not paved, it's not maintained, so it's an easement, but you couldn't get vehicles up there real easily.
It's pretty heavily forested.
Gotcha. Yep.
We maintain the other one on Valley View where we put up a, we've put up bollards and a gate because we had people parking back there, and we said, the Water District said, hey, please don't park on our easement. That's where we go to maintain our water pumps. And so we had to put up a gate and tell the owners, no, that's not your personal parking area.
Okay, any other questions?
No, sir.
Call the question, please.
Question has been called. Any objections? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate. Okay, unanimous, approved.
And the last item I have, a closeout change order on UDR funding.
Page 53.
Page 53, Michael, thank you. The association conducted a clearance lot auction back in March to sell off our excess buildable lots and excess ULIDs. In January of 18, association management forecasted preliminary expenses of $7,355, which included fees, advertising, security, staffing, and so on. Staff anticipated that not all lots would sell back in January, and total and final sales would be in the $30,000 to $45,000 range. What we didn't expect that we would sell 19 lots, and we would transfer far more ULIDs and remove far more liens than we expected. If you remember, we agreed that we would not remove the liens until we sold lots, because we leave liens on lots that we have. There's no reason to take the lien off. We own the lot. And there was no reason to transfer a ULID off a lot unless it was sold. And so we anticipated selling a certain amount, but not that many. And it cost $250 per ULID to transfer, and then it cost, I think, $125 to transfer a lien. So 2 additional areas incurred expenses greater than planned, advertising, and also an auctioneer. We didn't know until the end, and thank goodness we checked. We had to have an auctioneer to sell real property. We can have an auctioneer to sell personal property, but not real. We decided to double also our advertising, sending every member 2 postcards informing them of the event and where to obtain information. So on the day of the auction, 26 individuals were registered to purchase, and 23 actual bidders participated in the auction. Of the 20 lots advertised, 19 were sold for a total sales price of $94,500. Of the 19 ULIDs offered for sale, none sold at the auction. The following day, 1 member purchased 1 ULID at the starting price and a transfer fee. An additional $15,205 in prepaid dues were also collected. So in total, the association received $110,605 in revenue, and cost for the event rose up to $8,281.03, which was $926.03 above the allocation. So we're requesting a $926.03 allocation from the UDR account be approved to fully fund the 2018 clearance lot auction.
I move that we approve this request.
Second, please.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Comment?
Go ahead.
I think that the general manager misspoke when he was reading this, and since we have people listening but not reading, there were 9 ULIDs, not 19, offered for sale.
Thank you. And I'm very glad that we did not sell them, but I'll go into that in a moment.
Call the question?
Okay, questions called. Any objection? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate. That's also unanimous. Very good.
We did not sell ULIDs that particular day, but now I am aware that the Lake Whatcom Water District has informed people throughout the watershed that they may no longer be on a septic system. And if they wish to purchase a ULID, they can do so from the Water District for $7,000. We will now raise our price to our ULIDs back to $2,500 and send letters to the people who are on septic systems saying you can purchase one from the Water District for $7,000, or you can purchase one from us for $2,500.
I had thought that these were only for a specific area.
Nope.
Okay.
Water District. I'm sorry, in the watershed. There,
Okay.
ULIDs apply.
Okay.
So I have every intention of talking to Bill Hunter on Monday when he returns.
Yes.
And asking Bill if he would please go ahead and maintain a list of our ULIDs for sale. So when people contact the Water District,
Yeah.
he
They have
is
options.
welcome to do that.
Yeah, okay.
I do have a question.
That's it.
I do have a question regarding that ULID issue. Why are we selling them so much less than the water district? If we can sell them, and the water district is asking 7, maybe I'm greedy, but why not charge 5?
I have a legal reason I'll talk to you offline on.
Okay, all right, legal reason, very good. And also, just a clarification, are you aware, I had not heard that the water district was requiring people to be
I have-
off of septic.
I have questions about this myself. I have questions about the units, because it was my understanding that they were
Issued
the
for
purpose-
Sudden Valley.
No, not for Sudden Valley, but for any of the users of the new line that went down Lake Louise Road, which is Sudden Valley and Geneva. Okay.
Right.
Now, does this apply across on the North Shore or not? I don't know. We need, there are questions we need answers to.
Okay, all right. So thank you for your information, and obviously there's a question about the big
Procedure.
scheme of things.
And we're willing to play in the big scheme of things if we can sell it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, that's, does anyone have any objection to selling ULIDs that we don't need? Okay.
Mr. President, ask Mitch to tell us how many ULIDs we have currently in possession. I think it's more than 19, 18.
We have enough ULIDs for that and for the development of Area Y, should Area Y ever get developed.
Thank you, I know that. It's just, it's an interesting
So
thing
it was a
that,
trick question.
no, not for you, because I expected you'd know the answer, but I don't think.
I knew you
we
knew
have-
that answer.
We have lots of ULIDs, and at one time, before, we also tried to sell some of them because we had a great plethora of them when we, when we put some of our lots into density reduction, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'll just state from my own personal opinion, I would like to charge more if in fact we can sell and we still have to do some discovery. Okay?
They're only good in this area for, I think, 10 more years. So the area, the value in Sudden Valley is depreciating.
I think about 5 years.
Yeah,
Because
max.
the Lake Louise Interceptor went through 2000.
So 24-year
for
restriction, 25-year
25.
restriction. So their value to us is depreciating very quick.
Yes,
Okay.
To a
Well, if we
septic
can't,
owner.
if we can't get more, great, but
yeah.
if we can, I'd like it. Okay. So that was the last of the requests and change orders, and now we are at proposed rates and fee schedule change.
Yes, and I'll just say that this was reviewed by the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee had a dozen questions, and it was not something that we felt comfortable voting on. But we did assign 2 Finance Committee individuals to research, interview, review, talk, and Penny Carter and Paula Birchler worked on this, talked to Maddie Otley, who's the rec manager. Oh, I apologize. So Penny and Paula talked to Maddie Otley, to Summer Cronk, to General Manager Waterman, and put together what they felt was a consensus from everyone and all the research they had done. And this is the result, and I suspect that Mitch can provide us with additional information. He was more part of some of the dialogue or the discussion that went on, but there were many opinions, but in the end, this is what their consensus was as to how to pull the fees together. The other piece is that they're very comfortable with this for now, but they will want to review it again at the end of the year and see if any adjustments need to be made or any additions or whatever.
Well, we normally approve these things every year anyway.
We
so
do,
that makes-
correct.
That's
But
wonderful.
just as far as making a change, it would not come until the end of the year. They want to see how this floats.
Understood.
Unless
Understood.
something serious comes along.
That one thing I would like to ask for you before we move, actually make a motion to move this in, is are there any big increases. You know, I only see the final
Yeah,
recommendation.
there's no comparison.
Yeah, there's no comparative numbers here. I suppose we could pull that up on a webpage someplace,
What are you
but
going to compare it to?
the
Y
existing,
last
no,
year?
no, whatever the existing fee schedule says.
There are some
is a
substantial
temporary.
increases.
Yeah.
Because what's
And
occurred.
that's really what I was getting at.
Yeah,
What
there
are
are,
the big ones?
there are some substantial increases. Our members already pay to use our facilities. And so we compared them to YMCA and to Arnie Hanna. And so those were our two benchmark areas. So Sudden Valley Strong and our staff looked at Arnie Hanna, looked at the Y, and did a comparison. And then finance said they felt that the numbers were too low in a number of areas and increased them. In some cases, we didn't agree and we lowered them because we have to be in a situation where as a nonprofit, we can't appear to be overcharging to disincentivize, but we can charge for comparative services, which we did.
Right.
And so there are some increases. Now, mind you, these rates that you're looking at on the rec center are very similar to what we have now for rec center fees excluding the dance barn. But the main pool and the gym fees, they're very much in line with Arnie Hanna and the YMCA, and that's open to the public. So we created rates for member guests, renters, notice the asterisk. So Sudden Valley Strong wanted renters that lived in the valley to receive a rate different than public. So that's what renters means. And at the back end, on adult center fees, it's member, guests, and renters. We do not have adult center pool fees open to general public. We're allowed to exclude them, and so we do not. Madam Treasurer?
I just wanted to add that there are some renters here in Sudden Valley who, should they be able to get the owner or the member to actually assign their privileges over, they will then become, by definition of this fee schedule,
A member.
a member. And they will not have to pay, although I understand there's a $25.
We did not put that in. We
Thank
didn't
you.
keep it in.
I'm not sure.
We did not
Yeah.
keep it in.
Okay, good.
So we're requiring a copy of the lease and a letter of delegation from the owner on the owner's email that's registered with us. So if the owner, we get a lease and the owner sends us a letter of delegation from the email that we have on file from the owner saying, I delegate my rights to this person, there's only one right per household. But if an owner has 4 rentals, well, all right, fine, you got 4 rights. But if they give it up, then the owner doesn't have it.
Yeah, and that's per the bylaws, so I'm more comfortable with having no fee, since it's a bylaw requirement. But a paperwork requirement is kind of an obvious necessity. I guess what's confusing to me also, and actually answer this after you make the motion, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it now.
Did I make the motion already?
No, there has been no
May I
motion.
make the motion?
Sure, go ahead.
I move that we accept this fee schedule.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
I second that, please.
Okay. Now, the question that I have is, I'm confused with regard to adult center pool fees. Remind me, are we charging adult center fees to
Guests and renters.
okay, this is member guests, not members. It's guests
Right, guests
and
of
renter.
members.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
That's what's
renters
confusing me.
in the valley can use it, and members, guests.
Can use
but
it,
not
but
public.
not the.
You can't show up from downtown Bellingham and say, I'd like to use the adult pool. No, not open.
But even more so, a guest of a member does not get in free because a member says, I'm inviting you.
That's correct, you still have to pay.
You still have to pay. Okay, now, the other, it's just a typo. If this renter issue has got a bullet on the top, shouldn't the second one, or the adult center renter, have a bullet on it as well?
I'm sorry, I'm lost, sir.
You see, at main pool and gym fees, rates for member guest renters, and you put an asterisk after that. Okay? Now, adult center pool fees, member guests and renters, there's no asterisk. Shouldn't there be one there?
So the asterisk was left over from a previous version where we described what a renter is. We did a complete, I think almost a 3-page Q&A. And I send that out to the entire board also.
It hasn't
Yes, I
shown up
did.
in my inbox. I
Okay,
have to go
so
look for
it's,
it.
we sent out everyone, who is a member? What is a member? Who pays?
That's understandable, but I'm
I'll take
presuming.
the asterisk off.
Well,
It
either
was an
take them
earlier
off or make
version.
them everywhere.
I'm going to take the asterisk off.
Yeah,
We-
there's nothing on the
In
back.
earlier version, there were many footnotes on these.
Why don't we just adopt that by acclamation? This is just a typographical issue.
Mr. President, Linda.
Yes, Linda?
Okay, question for you guys. Under the adult center pool fees, it says for a private party, it's 150. For just guests and renters, does that mean as myself as a member, I can request a private party for no fee and the use of the adult pool for no cost?
No, ma'am, you can't. As it stands right now, still under current fees, you want to have a party at the adult center, and it's an exclusive party, you'll rent it, and you'll pay a fee for it.
It's just confusing because it says it's under here, it's just member guests and renters. That's why I'm asking. That's all.
It sounds like a fair comment that this
Fair
should be
comment.
for everybody.
Everyone will pay.
Mr. President, I have a question. I thought that
Just a sec, before you go to that question, can we just adopt by acclamation that this private party issue, that'll be a separate line, because that applies to everybody?
Yeah, I'll actually put a clarifier in private party, everyone pays.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. That's all.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's a good typo catch. Thank you, appreciate it. Mike, yes, sir.
I thought that the adult pool was not allowed by some rule to preclude anyone from coming into the pool that is a member if someone were having a party at the pool. It's happened in the past, and I know that we've gone back and forth. We've even had a security guard bounced from the ranks because of the kerfuffle that it caused. But Eric, help me out here. Isn't that some kind of a policy law, bylaw?
was a discussion.
That is not a policy or a bylaw.
Certainly not a
But
bylaw. I don't know about a policy.
I've never seen a policy regarding that. That would have been a rule
Okay.
that was established by a board,
All right.
and I haven't seen that either.
So in other words, what I'm gathering briefly is that there's a distinct possibility that a private party can close that pool off from anybody else using it.
That's correct. It's been that way for a long time.
I don't know. I haven't discussed the issue. Anyway, Leslie first and then Linda.
If we're taking out that line about private parties and making it a standalone, are we indicating that members, as well as their guests, as well as the renters, are able to rent the pool? Okay.
Does the adult portion has to be used by adults still apply to that then? That's the other question, because that is one of the rules for the adult center, I
That is
believe.
a rule, but I believe council has informed us that we cannot enforce that rule. That we can dissuade people under 21 from using the adult pool, but we cannot prohibit them.
So
I
what I'm
believe
saying
we
is
have
if,
we have a communication from Rich on that just last year, maybe?
Yes, sir.
so if somebody wanted to have a birthday party for their child and the friends of theirs and that sort of thing, then you could do it. I'm just checking since we're talking policies
The
here.
answer is yes, they can, and then we would assign a lifeguard to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the major problem with kids, is that there's no lifeguard there.
Yeah.
And if there's kids there, I believe there has to be a lifeguard.
It's a
Not-
general use pool, so we wouldn't, but we would. I've asked Maddie to put that into her policy statement.
Okay.
Is there a policy too of the, how often, like, notice is posted if there are private parties for people that use the
2
adult
weeks'
pool?
notice.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
In that regard, as far as the private party is concerned, when a lifeguard is necessary, that cost is borne by the person that's doing the party, correct?
Covered under the $150 fee.
That's reasonable.
Okay. To me, that doesn't make sense. If I don't have to have a lifeguard, I pay 150, but if I have to have a lifeguard, I pay 150.
We do not have to have a lifeguard at all. in
No,
that.
but I know, but, all right, let's say that I want a birthday party, so I'm gonna invite my people, and they're all over 21, and I don't need a lifeguard. But let's say I'm going to have a birthday party for a 12-year-old grandchild, which therefore I need a lifeguard. Why wouldn't I pay for the lifeguard?
Well, it's a very good question. Our conversation has been, it's our preference, not a requirement by law, that a lifeguard be there. It's a risk mitigation to us, and so we felt that for $150, the lifeguard's going to be $13. We would pick up the cost of the lifeguard. If you feel that we should include that in the cost, we'll include it, we'll add that to it.
And that's one lifeguard that is not available for the big pool if it gets maxed out, or a lifeguard only can work how many hours in a day before they have to?
So it's a little different. We hired 10 lifeguards.
Yes.
So we can have them not be full-time and have a lot of flexibility in assigning their hours. So we purposely did that, knowing that we'd be able to flex up and down on schedule and have excess lifeguards. That's why we hired 10.
Would you like to make a motion to add a particular amount for lifeguard if a lifeguard is necessary? I mean, and that we would probably want to discuss and vote on as a motion to amend, but feel free to make it.
All right, so this would be an amendment because we already have a motion on the floor to pick this up the way it is listed.
That says $150, and you're saying if there's a lifeguard, add the lifeguard cost on that.
Okay, my motion would be that, yes, that if this private party necessitates a lifeguard because there are going to be people there under 21, then I think we mandate that there be a lifeguard and that the private party person picks up the cost.
Okay, so that's the motion, to add the cost of a lifeguard if a lifeguard is necessary for a particular private party. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any need to discuss further? David?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like this is one of those little disincentives for families, for the kids. I think in general, overall, the kind of thing we're trying to create in the community is to have family-oriented kind of activities and facilities and amenities. And it feels like this is one of those little extra charges that is placed on the family, where I think it's an interesting little, again, disincentive. I think we should not place anything which appears to be somewhat of a disincentive for that type of thing.
Thank you. Nessa? Yeah, you really need to talk louder into that one. Oh. Well, David share. You're closer than Leslie even.
Is this on? Okay.
It is. It's on.
It's sort of on. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I was going to mention is my son had a birthday party at the Fidalgo pool. It was all indoor. It had slides and, you know, this big rope you could slide on into the pool. And I just looked at the receipt the other day, and it was $105 for us to rent that out for 2 hours. But that's indoor, it's not outdoor. I think that's just something to consider. This would be all outdoor, and I think for $150 already, that seems kind of expensive. So just want to throw that out there. Fidalgo's less money indoor, and they have a lot of cool additional things you can play on in the pool.
But this is 4 hours
Hey,
as opposed to 2.
Mike,
Sorry.
raise your hand. Eric, and then Mike.
So I appreciate that experience. That's important that we have input with experience like that. This is, as I just overheard, 4 hours, not 2 hours, so that's a little bit longer party. But I also want to point out that a lifeguard is $13.50 an hour, so that's 4 hours. And so that's, what, $54?
Is that correct, sir?
Plus 1 times 1.15.
Okay,
Okay,
so.
sure,
Yeah,
so
okay.
loaded. And so that's a significant difference between $150 versus, well, 80 to high 80s for that 4-hour rental, effectively, that would be seen as income to Sudden Valley for that 4 hours. And I, as someone who enjoys the adult pool, would probably not like to see a lack of 4 hours of use of that pool on a nice day that's being purchased for far less than I had to pay last year to go to that pool.
Mike,
It's already been said.
okay.
Leslie and then
Leslie,
Vanessa.
Leslie first, and then I will, and then I'll go back to you, Vanessa.
Okay. I have a question, and maybe you don't know the answer, but what's the size of the problem we're looking at? How often did kids rent the pool out last year?
They didn't.
Thank you.
Okay. And my observation, really, is, as I said earlier, I love getting income to counteract our costs. That's a good chunk of change. On the other hand, as we discussed earlier, nobody else gets to use the pool during that party. And frankly, if you're getting exclusive use of the pool and excluding everybody else in the community, to me, it does not seem unfair to recover some costs, maybe not necessarily the entire costs, but recover some costs. That's my comment. Vanessa?
Did I turn it on? So I don't remember what it is, but it used to be that you could rent, like, for instance, the shelter for free, right? If you remember, you could come in. Well, I did because I rented it out before and I got it, or I think it was $150, right? $150.
It's 150 if no one's there, Vanessa.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Yeah, maybe that was what it was. So the shelter was 150, but here we're talking about all these times where you're going to make $150 and there's not going to be a lifeguard requirement because adults rented it out. So why does it matter if, like, we have, a few little kid parties there and we have to nickel and dime the families? It's kind of what David was mentioning. I just don't see. Well, first, I'm disappointed that as a member you can't get it at a discounted price renting out the pool, and that we have to pay the same as a guest or a renter to rent out that pool. So that's my first disappointment, but then to add additional fees on top of that $150, and I'm a member, I don't think that seems fair either.
Okay. Mike?
Well,
Microphone, please.
now the more I think about this, the more I don't even like renting the pool out to anyone. When Eric said, there's a 4-hour chunk on a nice day that no one else other than this private party is going to have access to the pool, then you got 7 kids with their hands or their eyes looking through the knothole trying to get into the baseball game, but they can't get into the baseball game. I'd like to take, after we vote on these amendments, I'd like to make a motion that we take that damn thing out.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this particular amendment?
David?
David? On the
That's what
amendment.
you're saying, because
On the amendment.
I guess not. I want to follow up with Mike, but that's a different.
We'll do that later.
This mic is hardly.
No, it's working.
It's
I
working.
can hear you.
Working, we can hear you.
It's working fine.
Okay, so we'll move on. Any further discussion on this amendment? Okay?
Could we reread the amendment,
Right.
please?
The
sir?
amendment is to add the cost of any necessary lifeguard to the $150 charge.
For renters under, or users
Well,
under 21 years of age.
That is really unnecessary. Just say, if there's a lifeguard that's necessary, you get to pay for the lifeguard. And that's added to the fee.
Okay, not what I understood. My understanding was that this was only going to happen if the people who rented it were going to have users under the age of 21 there.
That was our plan.
Yeah, that's the only time you would have a need for a lifeguard.
Exactly, yeah.
So, in this document, you don't need to go that level of detail. This is only saying, if you need a lifeguard, you pay for a lifeguard.
Okay.
Okay, so, can we vote? Okay, question has been called. Is there any objection? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to amend and add recouping the cost of the lifeguard when necessary. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. All opposed to that, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and David, you're abstaining. Okay, that motion fails. Okay, now I believe you would like to make another motion.
You want to vote on the...
I would like you to
on
make
the-
your motion.
There's a motion on the floor.
It's a motion to amend.
But there is also a motion on the floor.
The motion on the floor is for the entire document. So you are making a motion to amend by deleting one portion of that.
Yes, I make a motion that, that private party line under adult center pool fees be stricken. I don't want it in there at all.
Second.
Moved and seconded to remove the rental of the adult pool for private parties altogether. Is there any discussion of that?
Oh, man.
Okay, so David, did you raise your hand or not?
I did.
Okay, then David, and then Leslie, and who was next?
I just want to hear rationale, that's all.
Okay.
I just want to hear discussion.
Yeah, maybe Mike's already said it, the business about whenever it's a really beautiful day and you have all these folks and some small party has it for $150, whatever, it's pretty inexpensive to monopolize the pool for that. And since we have such a short time frame using the pool anyway in the summertime, it feels like what Mike is suggesting is very appropriate.
Okay, Leslie?
Okay, so we've got this group of 3 adults, and they've got 7 kids who want to have a birthday party, and to have them just be able to walk in and do it, I think that we need to have some way to reserve the area, and know that there are going to be people under 21 there, and I think that it's appropriate to have a rental fee for groups of people who want to close the pool to others for some period of time.
Okay, Carol, and then Eric.
I'm curious, how often does the pool get closed for special parties?
Hasn't happened since I've been here.
It seems to me like this is something we're just dealing with that we don't even need to. If it becomes an issue, we can add it in at some future point. I think we just take it out as an item.
You mean you're...
In other words, I'm in favor of his...
You're opposing?
In favor of it.
In favor of his amendment to take it out.
Oh, to take it out.
Right.
In favor of the motion.
If I may, to answer Leslie, I'm not taking, I'm saying that you can't rent the pool, period. It's not that you can rent the pool and not pay us.
Right.
It's you can't rent the pool for your private party, period.
That's what I seconded.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the motion.
Okay, so it's a removal capability, not just a rental fee?
Yep.
Okay.
Call the question?
Did you want to talk? Yeah. Odell's on.
Yeah, oh, yes, Odell.
I believe Mr. Waterman stated earlier that no one has attempted to rent the private adult pool, is that correct?
Not since he's been here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since Sudden Valley as a community means togetherness, I think I could suck it up for one day for 4 hours to let someone rent the pool to have a private party. That's called community. It's called sharing. Is that not the whole point of this? It's not that big a deal. We have a huge lake we can swim in.
Cool.
Mr. President, we have 3 more hands up now, starting with David, Vanessa, and Eric.
Okay, David?
It doesn't mean that people can't go in and they have their little space around the pool and have their party. I don't see it necessarily impacting other people. Other people can be swimming in the pool and having a good time too. It's just that we're going to have a space in the area surrounding it with your little festive whatever, and I don't see how having other people there necessarily precludes somebody having, again, a family with their friends and kids there enjoying a part of that reality.
Vanessa?
The only thing I could think of is we had a different pool party in Bellingham this time, and the swim time was only an hour. So maybe we could think about lowering the 4 hours to 1 hour, because for little kids, 4 hours is a long time for a pool party. So maybe that would be an option.
I'm taking that as a comment in opposition to the motion on the floor, but you're indicating that you might make a different motion later.
Sure.
Okay? Eric?
Mr. President, I withdraw my motion.
Is there any?
It was seconded.
It was seconded, and you
I
really...
don't care, we're talking 20 minutes for something that is a 1 second thought.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
I apologize, I'm the one that started it.
I understand. Okay, normally that is not allowed, but since we're a fairly small group, is there any objection from the rest of the directors to having this particular motion to amend withdrawn?
No problem.
No objection?
One.
Okay,
You can object.
David.
I'll defer.
Call the question on the main motion.
Okay, so that motion is without objection, then withdrawn, and we will move forward to the main motion, and we just got someone saying, calling the question. So is there any desire for further discussion on the fee schedule as it exists?
This is to pay for lifeguards.
No.
No, sir.
To accept
To
the fee schedule as is.
The fee schedule
And
as
staff
is.
worries about the lifeguards.
Let me restate, the only thing that has been done regarding private party is that is to be pulled out into a separate line so it's clear that anybody can do it.
Public, no, not public.
No.
Not public.
Renters and members, period. That's it.
That's it. So right now, it's confusing the way it's listed.
Got it.
Okay. Otherwise, there's no change to the rate, there's no change to the time, and there we have it. So the motion has been, or the question has been called. Thank you very much. And is there any objection? All right, all in favor of the fee schedule as listed, please indicate. That's unanimous. It passes. As amended.
All right, the next component, we have the May financial statements. The only thing I wanted to mention was that the salaries for the month of May, twice a year, we have 3 pay periods during the month. So some of our expenses for this particular month in May were higher than anticipated. And if you look on page number,
I think it would be page
must be
57.
58. I think it must be 58. No, it's not. 57. 57. Well, it's actually bizarre because
55.
55, okay, the page after 56,
57, but it's not listed.
it's not 57 because if you look at the next one, it is the page 50. These are two unnumbered pages. So if you were to look at the income statement summary, you'll notice that there are a number of expenses that were under various categories that were over the anticipated budgeted amount. It is because we had that third week in May, and it will clear in the month of June. In other words, that will be corrected in the month. In other words, it'll look better in the month of June.
It's a
Yeah.
temporary glitch.
It's a temporary glitch, correct, that's it. Other than that, I think you can see that we've, provided you with these. We also, or the minimums, but they are all posted online if you want more detail. And also, we are putting the second version of the article regarding the cash reserve report in the views. Brent has already received it and has put it in, and with explanations. So hopefully you will take a look at that, and we'd love some feedback. We'll also be requesting questions from the members. If they have any, we will post those answers to those questions in the following month's views, along with the quarterly financials, so Brent can be prepared. We will be posting financials in the month of August.
Just a comment, Madam Treasurer. It would be nice, I think, if people could maybe linked to the Sudden Valley FAQ page, find a way to get access to those,
Yes, I
any
have-
article that explains how our books are done.
I've asked the general manager if he would find some place to post these two articles, as well as any future ones we have.
Super.
And I know he hasn't had anything else to do, so.
No, he doesn't, and his staff is just sitting around chewing bubble gum.
That's right. So hopefully at some point we will be able to post those on our website for a learning tool for our membership.
Superb. So is that it for the treasurer's report?
That is it.
Okay, committee reports. ACC, is anyone speaking for them tonight? Okay, that is there. We'll just say as filed. Communications Committee, nothing to speak of for them. Document review, we had a meeting last night. They approved minutes from the prior 4 meetings, and so those will be posted as soon as possible. And we've got a long list of stuff to do, and there's only one item that is actually complete, and that is a recommendation from the Document Review Committee to delete the animal control policy that a member said, why are we being asked to report animals to an entity that no longer exists in the county? And our recommendation is to pull that policy entirely. We'll make that a formal proposal at the next board meeting. Righty. Emergency preparedness. Emergency Preparedness Committee Report.
Most of the meeting is on pages 12 and 13 in the general manager's report. The rest of it is posted online.
Okay. Long-range planning has not met. Nominations and elections.
Well, I met with the committee and gave them the report that the report we got from the DRC that you would be unable to approve our manual. We're not happy with that, and we very much would still like to be able to get the board to approve our manual before we get in all of the candidates, before we start receiving ballots, that sort of thing. Granted, we have the new SB 6175 to deal with, but the current manual that we're working with is just so far out of date and so many different problems that we have with it. Even to simply go with the new registration procedure, I can say that we are a small committee. So far, we have not received any applications to fill the 5th person. I do not know, but that possibly some of the members of the committee might be running as candidates, in which case, once they are announced as candidates, I will no longer have them as part of my committee, or the committee. And so we would really like to see the manual brought forward to the board. There's going to be some challenges this year with registering and everything, with the new state law and everything, and I'll talk about that later, but we really would like to have something. And I know, you've said this is hard, it's been difficult for us. We have, we've tried to bring it forward, and it has just sat with nobody doing anything with it during the SGM. And so that's kind of where I'm at, and I'll talk about the AGM calendar and schedule a little bit later on.
Okay. Parks and Trails.
First I have, would you like me? Okay. First I have a new member approval. Her name is Francine Warden, W-O-R-D-E-N. She has been vetted. So I make a motion that we move that Francine Warden be a member of the Recreation, Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a need to discuss? All right, then why don't we just say that that's approved by acclamation?
Great. Okay. Second one is the off-leash dog area at Marina. Without starting a bonfire, I'm going to pass around, I should have made copies, but I didn't. I'm going to pass around the only rule that we can find regards what was originally the off-leash dog area down at the marina in 1997, and we have not found anything to change this. And you can see how much smaller it is than it is currently. Currently, it encompasses 2/3 of that entire beach area. So the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee recommends that the administration immediately begins to work to determine the feasibility of fencing in an area of the marina for off-leash use, including budget and shoreline permit considerations, and the ability to require key card access. This would be the same cards as used for the gym and the pool. Should the county deny a shoreline fence permit, we will consider, the we is Parks, Trails, and Recreation, will consider other alternatives. That's a motion.
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding that motion? Yes, ma'am.
Did you pass it down?
I believe originally the dog park was meant to be open to the public. Are we now changing that to just users of Sudden Valley, members?
If I may.
Yes, you may. That's a question, so you make a motion.
Right now, the thought process, Linda, is that obviously if you live in Sudden Valley, you would be able to get your card and use the dog park. If you are from outside, from anywhere else, then we would hope to have something in place where you would have to go to admin, sign up, and pay a fee to use the dog park for that particular day or for a period of time, depending on how long you're going to be in the area.
Just doesn't have anything in the language, thank you.
No, not yet.
Yes. That's an absence.
Point.
Yes.
Staff. Linda, I agree. I think that we cannot stop the public from using the park, but we can ban dogs. Dogs do not have the same privilege as a member of the public from a nonprofit status. It's an interesting point, but we could ban a dog. We could say, no, this park is not open for dogs. If that's what you're getting at.
I think what I'm trying to get at is people, right now, we do have people that don't live in here that use the dog park. Have we had problems with that? Yes, we have. The problem is, so you fence it off, you don't let people use it, so then do they let their dogs run on the part of the park we don't want them to run on? And how do you police it?
Yep, that's always a good question. How do you police what you set up? Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
I believe that the motion was to ask or direct staff to work on determining the feasibility of such use. Am I clear on that's what the motion is? It isn't to actually implement anything, it's to ask staff to work on determining the feasibility of such a plan.
I feel like I'm in Congress here in front of it. Yes, yes, Mr. Senator, that's actually correct.
Thank you. I would support exploring the feasibility.
Any further discussion?
Call the question.
Okay, question has been called. All in favor of exploring the feasibility of this option, please indicate. Okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, number 3, recategorization of Hendrickson Creekside Park. That these two parks would be maintained less as a park and more as a green space. That is not a motion, that's just what we're going to do.
Staff input.
Please.
I had a conversation with Karen, the chair of the subcommittee.
Carol? Oh, Karen?
Yeah, actually, the president was in my office.
The chair of the subcommittee.
Chair of the subcommittee. And so I pointed out to her that the only maintenance that'll occur in parks is money out of the parks budget. And if that Hendricks Park itself has a sign, so was the intent of the request to remove the sign, turn it back into a natural park, remove the garbage can, remove the mitt-mutt, and who told the community around it, because it's a pocket park, of this plan? And so I would like to refer this back to the committee and say, please put together some kind of definitive checklist of what is your intent when you want to change the status of a park. Really, what is your desire to do so? In this case, our feeling is that and Karen understood and agreed that if you leave the sign up, there's an expectation it's a maintained park. So I feel that you probably need to take the nameplate down, but that if we take the garbage can out and the mitt-mutt, and that's where everyone's currently walking their dogs, well, I'm in favor of the garbage can, because we have 52 garbage cans, and during the summer months, we collect them, and that's a lot of work. I'm in favor of doing that, but I think that we need to communicate to the entire neighborhood around that might be using that to walk their dogs of this intent, and ask them, would they like to adopt this little area and possibly mow it, or do something with it, or give them some input. But right up the street is another park, which is a much bigger park and a much nicer park. And so we'd like to use our resource, explaining to them, we want to use our resources to maintain that park as opposed to these smaller pocket parks. So I'm going to ask that that request be pulled back and not acted on, and sent back to Karen on that subcommittee, and ask them to come up with a more definitive plan, so when they ask us to do this, we have a better idea of what this is.
Okay, all that makes sense, and I'll certainly do that, sir.
One additional item that we discussed was also if the park is decommissioned, signs gone, trash cans gone, mutt mitts gone, And even if everybody in the community is told that that's, and is willing to let that go, what about the natural result of leaving that thing unmowed? You know, are there trees going to be planted? Is it going to turn into weeds? What's the deal? So that's an issue to be discussed with the neighbors. Do they want to continue maintaining it? Do they want instead to volunteer to plant some plants and make it pretty? What's the deal? Because it's right on the road and it's very easy to see as you drive by. If it's not taken care of, it will look pretty ugly pretty fast.
Okay.
Now, do I want to spend money on it? No. Who's next? David first? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the point that we have all these pocket parks around, and they were specifically, if I understand it correctly, so that sprinkled throughout the whole community, everybody has an equitable piece of parkland, if you will, right next or within easy walking distance or whatever. That's one reason when people talk about place to park your car, that seems to be off the, because these aren't designed for people to come in from, they're designed for the people right there to have their little private park. It feels kind of inappropriate to decommission these. I mean, it might be like we have a sequence, we can't do everything at once, but you're on the list, we're not pulling you off. And in the meantime, just as Larry was mentioning, are there ways that we can temporarily keep it somewhat functional? Might not be like the one that was just talked about earlier, Huckleberry, or those kind of parks where we're renovating them. Like, we'll get to it, just like potholes. We can't get all the potholes today. You're going to be on the list as well, but I don't think it's appropriate for any of us to, in effect, decommission maybe an alternative way of dealing with it for the time being until we can give it its full, whatever, measure of its interest and finances that are due to those folks who are living in that area.
I'll just point out that the board has concurred that one of the tasks of the Rec, Parks and Trails Committee is to provide the board with recommendations about what parks to decommission, because we cannot afford to maintain them all. Now, this is the start of a recommendation. It's not a completed recommendation yet with regard to this park. And there may well be, I fully expect there will be other areas recommended for decommissioning. And we can talk about those individually, or we can talk about them as a whole, but the concept of getting a recommendation from the committee that's a done deal. That's a done deal. And so I think really all that staff said is take it back, work it through more to where details are fleshed out a little better.
Okay. And I think Linda's up, and Mitch just did his lean forward, so I think he has one more statement to make.
Just saying that staff is prepared to help them.
Okay,
I
Linda.
think the only other thing that I'd like to bring up is I think that park used to have a different name, and I think that some time ago, talking as somebody who's read Views back into the 70s, it was renamed after someone who lived in here as a memorial, and it's, you know, I don't know if any of the family still lives in here, that sort of thing, but I would hope that somebody would look into that matter before they decommission it.
Neither of us had mentioned that tonight, but that is a concern, that some people may remember Mr. Hendricks and may not feel kindly to take. My understanding is that Pete Hendricks was not only a resident of Sudden Valley, but also an employee, or at least
I believe he was head of security at one time.
yeah, I mean, he was well-known and well-respected a long time ago. He's not well-remembered now. So that's just another of the issues too.
Okay, thank you.
I have.
So, sending request back to committee, yeah.
Yes.
Eric had another comment.
One more comment about the concept of decreasing or increasing levels of maintenance of specific parks based on recommendations from a subcommittee. If we're talking about going to the extent of decommissioning a park, I would expect that that would come up through the committee level to the board for determination of, is it something that we want to, as a community, do?
So that should have been a motion.
Not
Well,
yet,
not ready yet.
not yet.
Well, because it's not ready. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My understanding is that that was the intent of it being brought forward, was for the board to discuss and deal with it. So we'll get another chance.
Good.
So that's with Hendricks. Now what about Creekside?
I'd say they're both in the same, other than there's not a Mr. Creekside, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
And Creekside Park, if I could be muddled in my thinking, but I think Creekside Park is actually in a creek.
Gate 9 parallel to Lake Louise Road.
Yeah, my understanding is that the difficulties with regard to that park are not the same as the difficulties regarding Hendricks Park, that in fact there is no sign, there is no access, there is no usage. It's essentially already wild territory that has not been maintained at all by anybody. So there's essentially the only thing that would be done if the board decertified it as a park is to simply say it's not a usable park, it's just merely part of green space, as it has been for years and years, and would take it off the list of parks. That's what I understand. In any event, you need to make a motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion that Creekside Park be taken off the list as a park.
So second,
The motion that which be taken off?
the Creekside
Creekside.
Park be removed from the list of parks. Are you seconding?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Motion has been made, but there is no second. So maybe we'll talk about it some other time. You can always make that motion again.
Okay, thank you.
When we have more information about it.
Apparently, at least one director said she would like to hear more information about
What
that.
I've heard is speculation tonight. I haven't had any actual input on what it's going on there.
Okay.
Like a formal report of,
Yeah.
here's the status of the area.
Yeah. Well, those two
Yada,
have been
yada.
referred back to committee
So-
for further information.
Well, the first one was referred back. Now we're dealing with the
Okay.
second one,
I
and
didn't realize, I
apparently,
thought we were talking about both of them.
and it's not really referred, it's just not being acted on, so I think you can take that as equal to a referral.
Okay.
Could I ask a question
Sure.
of us? Was it 2 years ago, we took, as a board, we were assigned to tour all of the parks, and I know that David and I and Director Holmstrom spent about 4 hours or 5 hours finding every one of the listed parks. And there were a small handful that we thought that we found the park, but we could never, ever be sure. And this Creekside Park was one of those that we thought that we found, and it was very overgrown, and I went back to it just a couple of weeks ago, and it was all cleared up. It was beautiful. They had lights in the trees and so on. And then I found out, well, no, that's somebody's actual second lot. It wasn't a park at all.
So maybe we
So-
do need to have
We need
more
more
info.
information.
So we definitely need more info.
Okey dokey.
Yeah.
That's,
Mr. President, David has his hand up.
Just growing up, I mean, there are a couple parks, as Eric mentioned, we toured, and there are a couple that I would have loved as a kid because it was overgrown. But it didn't have, it wasn't mowed. It was like you could climb a tree and fall, and whatever the case is,
It's
it
a
was a
wild.
real mixed kind of thing. And that, to me, is like the ideal park as a kid. That's how.
And very little maintenance involved.
yeah,
That's
just as
how
a
we
point
loved it.
of, just as a point of information, everyone in the community is free to have access to Sudden Valley Green Space. But the implication of having a park is that there be some form of maintenance. in any event, that was the reason why the committee was given the job of making recommendations. Okie dokie. So Parks and Trails is done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No continuing business. We have one item of new business, is the AGM calendar discussion.
Well, all of you are going to have to look at your page. I believe it's 59 and 60. And unfortunately, you kind of need to look at both at the same time, but I had highlighted some things. Looking at the calendar for this year was like herding cats. You have the new state law that has gone into effect, that's going to affect us. You also have a bunch of deadlines that are spelled out by our bylaws that apply. I've chosen some of the dates and some of the things we could possibly discuss, but one of the biggest things, and it's on my outstanding items I've got at the bottom, the first one is that I had July 2nd through 6th, staff finalizes the budget. Mitch had talked about some things, and I know Jennifer isn't back until the 9th. That's a variable, but I know that definitely finance planned an extra meeting on the 11th. And the board can begin talking about the sort of things that are gonna have to go into this year's booklet. I think there's gonna be, you're gonna have to have an explanation of the state law, I think, of some sort. We're gonna have to have our standard stuff in there, but we can also bring forward ballot measures then. You know, people that have ballot measures and that sort of thing, like bylaw changes, the candidates, the agenda, that sort of thing, what we may wanna do different this year to make sure everybody understands it. It would be nice to have a draft budget finalized by the end of July. I don't anticipate the board at the earliest is probably gonna be able to look at a budget until July 26th. You know, if we stick with our regular schedule. I don't think that that's, you know, out of the ballpark. I'd like to begin in August to start drafting the booklet. That's why I'm saying we can work on some of the bylaw, you know, if we have measures that are non-budget measures that people want to talk about. I don't know if there's going to be any special assessments. Is that going to be rolled into the budget? There's a lot of things that are up in the air that I have no knowledge of, but at least we can work on that. The one thing that I would like to do is, I think I've set out timelines. I've set August 30th as a date where the board meets to do the budget adoption, not approval, adoption, because that's what the new state law says that applies to us. The reason I have put it on August 30th, because it says that within 30 days of that, you have to send out notice to the members. And that would be the 29th of September. I feel that we can still meet mailing the 26th of September, as we usually do, which would put us within those 30-day notice, which is kind of a critical thing that they have in there. Because it says when you supply the membership with the budget, you have to give them a date for the meeting, which we would be complying with. Also, if you follow that, it then says that after you've given that 30-day notice to the members, it says not less than 14 nor more than 50 days after providing the budget that you then have to have that meeting. And the 3rd of November fits in, it's like 39 days from that date. So we fit within a lot of the compliance of state law, plus it meets with our mailing requirements. So I'm asking that we strongly consider following this calendar. The other thing that's kind of strange is there's a meeting quorum, and in the state law, it states that this is ratified whether or not a quorum is present. And I know that the association struggles some years to have a quorum here. However, any of our bylaw changes or other measures that are non-budgetary measures require that we have a quorum, such as electing our candidates and any changes to the bylaw, that sort of thing. Candidate forums, I've spoken with Eric, and he's going to talk to communications, and that isn't anywhere on here because I have no idea when it's going to happen. If the board anticipates any possible town halls to deal with this, when you might like to have the board organizational meeting, whether it's going to fit within the last part of November after the AGM, and then I put down the date when I would hope we could do the AGM certification. The other thing that's kind of confusing is voter registration vetting, and I still need to think through this, because since everything is a budget measure now, I used to have only a few members that could only be budget-only votes. It will now be those members who are not current in their dues, who cannot vote on candidates and any other measures that are non-budgetary, because that still says you have to be an eligible member. So it's been lots of fun. But I think the dates all fit within the timeline, and I just would strongly recommend that we try and stick with something like this, especially to make sure that we don't adopt the budget until the 30th, because then that would fit us within our mailing criteria for both our association, rules, regulations, and bylaws, and state law.
Are you making a motion?
All right, I would make a motion that the board approve the schedule. Like I say, there's still some, I understand, Mitch.
Second.
Oops, thank you.
Moved and seconded. Okay, thank you. Got it. Carol?
I appreciate Linda's thoroughness in this, because I had looked at the same issues with the new Senate bill requirements, and it seems to me the most critical ones are the adoption of the budget on, and I agree with the 30th. Based on what I know, I think if we have a different interpretation from our attorney, I'm open to that, but that seems to me to fit within the requirements of the law. And then the 29th of September is the other option that I think is most critical. I will also say that though I would love to follow this line by line, we have Jennifer back on the 9th of July and a lot of work to be done on the budget still. So I can't guarantee that we'll have everything done by the 26th of July. Certainly we'd love to have it done as soon as possible, but I think there's going to be a lot of debate about what is going to be in the budget, and we haven't even started that. We started the conversation, but we haven't put it together into a full budget to be able to look at what does that mean as far as dues, and I think that's going to take a lot of discussion. So I'm just going to encourage you as board members to be part of the Finance Committee and hear that, but you will not get an official draft of the budget until the Finance Committee has battled it out a little bit.
So I'm curious, are you speaking in favor of or against the motion?
I'm in favor of the calendar. I just want to make sure that we know that this, even though it's this, Linda had said, this is what we'd try to go for, we would do that, but I'm also saying I'm not confident that anything other than those two dates I said will necessarily be in solid ink.
Okay.
Mr. President, Leslie?
Leslie?
You have here specified August 30th as the date to adopt the budget. Is there kind of more of a window that we could use? I understand your concern about adopting it too early, but what's the drop dead date on the other side? I mean, do we have any way to play with that number?
I don't know that we do a whole lot to fit within our bylaws within theirs. Actually, I'd look back, normally we've approved budgets, usually by that second board meeting in August, so you've actually gained a week. Granted, it's not tons,
Yeah.
but
So
it's a week.
there might be a little bit of play
where
in
you
there.
finally adopt it, we take the vote, it would be a special
And we
meeting.
just push it forward?
Yeah, and you would just, we would come in, because everything would be hashed by then, hopefully.
Okay.
Eric?
I did some math with looking at our bylaws and with the new budget law. And if we work backwards from the 3rd of November, It says not less than 14 nor more than 50 days prior, or not less than 14 nor more than 50 days after providing the budget, you have to have the vote. So that means that you could actually provide the budget no later than October 4th. Now, it says within 30 days after adoption, you must provide a copy of it to them. That's within 30 days, which means it could be one day before, which means October 3rd, you could actually adopt the budget. So that window opens up significantly, and that actually still agrees with our bylaws, which, so the window is significantly larger than, now, I don't know how that fits in with mailing requirements.
Yeah.
But, printing or mailing. But as far as the law goes, that window is a whole lot bigger than the calendar would indicate.
But you're looking backwards from you're looking backwards for the AGM, and you're saying, okay, you're within 14. I'm saying you also have notice, and the way we do our mailings that say that we mail things out to our members no less than 30 nor more than 50.
Right.
So that's where I'm backing it up that little bit so that it fits within both windows.
Right.
And
No.
That's where I come with, that's why I'm not way to that date. That's why I'm saying this was actually like herding cats.
That's why I'm saying no less than 30 would be October 4th.
Okay, let's,
Yeah,
okay,
go
that's your
ahead.
comment? And who is next?
Carol?
I'm just wondering how we can't mail. How do you recommend we mail then a ballot and all the other AGM measures if we don't approve the budget till October 4th? I guess I'm confused on that.
No, I was simply showing that there is, legally, that is the extreme limit, okay? But I didn't know about the printing and mailing requirements that would cause the window to need to be.
You almost have to give the printer a week and a half.
Okay, sure. So that would still be significantly larger window than the calendar would show. Yeah.
You know,
If in an emergency, I can see, that's good to know.
Right.
I think we should attempt to follow the calendar, and that's why I would vote for us to at least attempt to follow the calendar she's put forth.
Mr. President, I believe David has his hand up.
No, it's just, we did have one of those crises about 3 years ago, I think, which deadline was, but anyway, we don't want to be there, we don't want to go there.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. Anything else?
No, sir, there's no.
Okay, I have a comment. Yeah, I do have a comment. I find that the language of the statute and how to work the statutory new language with our existing bylaw requirements regarding any amendments and candidates, et cetera, is confusing at best. And before I would feel comfortable voting on anything anywhere near this particularized, I would want some advice from our counsel on what he suggests would be an appropriate way to dance on this issue for this year when we've got two separate required timelines. The original that still applies to bylaws and voting, and the new one that now applies to budgets. We need to do this correctly and appropriately. So I must say that I'm very much against adoption of any kind of a calendar at this time, because I do not in the slightest feel comfortable that we are working as best as we possibly can and giving ourselves an appropriate amount of time without somehow also violating a different requirement. I don't want to violate one requirement let me put it this way, I don't want to end up abrogating a particular vote because we violated one of the requirements, and I absolutely don't want to impose a requirement for two mailings. That's You know.
Move to table this motion until we have advice from our attorney.
Okay, as a motion to table, there's only one thing to discuss, and that is the time, but she's given a specific request for attorney input.
And to come back onto the table at our next board meeting.
That'll be
Okay.
the 12th of July.
Excuse me?
That would be the 12th of July
12th
you're
of
talking
July.
about then.
Okay.
That's right. So, there is no discussion. All in favor of the motion to table, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, that looks unanimous to me. Okay, tabled.
I think you did a nice job.
All righty. Property owner comments, looks like that's not necessary. Are there any further board comments? Okay, now we need a short closed session for some legal issues. There is only one member of the audience. We'll need to cut the tape off here. And Rob, thanks so much for your working on the recording and stuff. Appreciate it. And thanks for being a monitor at the